Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game that was suggested by many of you. We are taking a break from Norway chess, even though it says in the video Norway chess still, but we're gonna fix that in a second, as today is a rest day at Norway chess. So a lot of you requested this game. This is the Clash of Generations. It was organized in Italy, and it was organized by legendary Italian musician Andrea Bocelli, who not only hosted the event but also participated in the simultaneous exhibition after the two have played their match. So it's Anand versus Faustino Oro. Everyone knows who Anand is, of course, 5 times world champion, a legend, the Lightning Kid. He did it all. And I don't really think he needs any introduction. His opponent, on the other hand, is 11-year-old international master from Argentina, so-called Messi of chess, Faustino Oro. And yeah, this is definitely the toughest opponent he faced, I would say. Aside, okay, he did beat Magnus once last year, but that was a bullet game online. So quite different than facing, Anand over the board, and having that presence in front of you. So this is one of the games that we will cover, and then we're going to discuss what else happened at the event. So it's Anand versus Faustino, and yeah, I kind of like these, Clash of Generations matches, like you had young Fabi facing Viktor Korchnoi, or even Anand, when Anand was 20, he played against Mikhail Tal that one game. But okay, it's quite a difference because Anand was 20 and Faustino is 11 here. But still, it's always interesting to see. So let's check it out. Anand with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 and knight to f3. And keep an eye on the clock because both of them are, playing incredibly quickly and just blitzing out moves. Knight to c6, bishop to b5, and a6. Faustino counters the Ruy Lopez with Morphy's defense. We have bishop to a4, knight to f6, and now pawn to d3. Pawn to b5, bishop to b3, and bishop to c5. The Anderssen variation of the Morphy's defense of the Ruy Lopez. On the board, c3, we have pawn to d6 and castles kingside. And here, more popular is, for example, castles or pawn to h6, but Faustino goes for the immediate unprovoked bishop to b6, which is somewhat more rare. Knight b to d2 and castles kingside. We have rook to e1, knight to e7 by Faustino, and here it's a very well-known position, was played in many games. For example, Michael Adams played it against Vladimir Kramnik, continued with knight to f1, for example, in the London Chess Classic in 2010, their game ended in a draw. But here Anand strikes with the immediate pawn to d4, and it is now as of move 11 that we have a completely new game, and you can see by the situation on the clock, Faustino even playing faster than the Lightning Kid himself. We have knight to g6, pawn to h3, and bishop to b7, nicely positioning that bishop pair towards Vishy's king. Bishop to c2 also helps out with the defense of the e-pawn, and rook to e8. We have pawn to a4, Anand strikes on the queen side, going after that b5 pawn, and queen to d7. Defending and connecting rooks, we have pawn to b3, and rook 8 to d8. Rook 8 to c8 could be maybe a little bit more precise, but okay, still, it's the middle of the game. Anything can happen. We have pawn to d5, Anand closes the center, and now Faustino will have to figure out what to do about his light square bishop, as if you're not ready to bust open with pawn to c6, you will have to remaneuver it via the c8 square. So the engine says that there's nothing wrong with pawn to c6, you should go after white's center right away, but he first starts remaneuvering. Knight to h5, eyeing that f4 square, knight to f1 by Anand, and now bishop to c8. Again, disliking that pawn to c6 move for the moment. Anand offers a trade of bishops. We have bishop captures, and now f captures on e3. Knight captures is also perfectly fine, as you will have access to f5, but this limits the mobility of Faustino's knights, as f4 is no longer an option. So pawn to c6, challenging the center now. Pawn to c4 and pawn to b4. Faustino prevents trades. We have knight 3 to h2, Anand trying to get that knight to g4, and Faustino says, nope, not happening, knight to f6. And now if you look at the position on the clock, the situation on the clock, now Anand is up on time. He is 6 minutes, Faustino below 6 minutes. We have knight to g3 and pawn to h6, just improving the position little by little. Rook to f1, and now knight to h7, shifting shifting the knight over maybe to g5, maybe to f8, but chances are to g5. We have knight to f5 by Anand and knight to e7, or immediately offering to trade that knight. So knight captures, we have queen captures, and d captures on c6. For the moment, Vishy wins a pawn, but Faustino will collect it momentarily. So queen to c7. Pawn to a5, grabbing more space here on the queen side, stopping that pawn from cementing on a5, and queen captures on c6. And well, Anand could definitely go for something like queen to d5, and perhaps against, I would say, a stronger opponent he even would, but here he goes queen to d2. It's a bit more complicated, he's up on time, and he wants to keep the queens on the board, connect the rooks, and just see what's what. For the moment, Anand will also have to figure out how to get his light square bishop into the game. So queen d2, and now queen to c5, just putting pressure on that diagonal. We have knight to f3 and bishop to b7. Bringing the bishop back, we have knight to e1, and now you could go for something like, let's say, knight to g5, if you want to put more pressure on that pawn, but then knight d3 kicks away the queen, also you will pick up the b4 pawn, so it's maybe possible, very, very complicated. Instead, Faustino goes queen to a7. He wants to avoid getting his queen attacked via the knight to d3, but that means that he's going to lose the b4 pawn. And he says, okay, if Anand captures on b4, I'm going to capture on e4. For example, queen captures on b4. First you capture with check, and then you can also go after the e4 pawn. And after queen to a7, Anand says, well, I will capture that pawn, but not right away. Rook to a4 first, and now we have knight to g5. Going after the e4 pawn, rook captures on b4, and knight captures on e4. So equal material, but this frees up Anand's bishop to wreak havoc across the board. Queen to d3. Now the knight can't really move, as Anand would go to h7, and that's pretty much game over. And I'm just going to show you one line here in the game. Bishop to a8 was played by Faustino, as that bishop could get captured in a lot of lines, and I'm going to show you one. For example, pawn to f5. It looks like a crazy move because nothing is defending that pawn, but what you're trying to do is make the rook capture it, and now you can move the knight because there's no queen h7, there's a rook in the way. And it's a really crazy position where after, for example, you move the rook, then you can play bishop to e4 and everything is fine for black. Or even if white tries to go for something crazy like rook to f7 and then queen to h7, you can play pawn to e4. And now if rook captures on b7, you can go queen captures on b7. And now if rook captures, you're going to play captures on d3. And after knight or bishop captures, you will also capture on e3. And after all is said and done, black is up the exchange and will enjoy a better game. So it's not better by itself, but if white tries to overpush, definitely will be better. It's definitely the way to go. But here we have bishop to a8, and now Anand goes for rook to b6. Again, putting more pressure on that a6 pawn, putting pressure on the d6 pawn, and just very much limiting the mobility of the black queen. Pawn to d5. Faustino strikes in the center. C captures on d5. Also interesting here would be pawn to c5, as the knight cannot move and you just get a passed pawn. You're gonna defend it with pawn to b4. So there is nothing wrong with that. I think Anand found the perfect way to minimize any chances that Faustino might have without burning too much time. So he's just going to capture on a6 and enjoy two connected pass pawns on the queen side. So bishop captures on d5 and queen captures on a6. Faustino goes for the trade. Maybe a bit more resilient would be keeping the queens on the board, but with two connected pass pawns and Anand having, well, so much more time, definitely not easy to handle. He trades, queen captures, we have rook captures on a6, and now knight to d2. He goes after the rook, but also will collect on b3. Rook to f2, and now knight captures on b3. We have knight to f3 and bishop to c4, attacking the rook. Rook to a7, and here it's still very much possible to play this game, but you have to play a move like rook to a8 or pawn to g5. But here, knight to c1 was played, and there's a really, really awesome way that you can sort of end the game on the spot here, but it's extremely difficult to find. It's sort of what I like to call a disgusting engine line. So if you like those, feel free to pause the video and try to find a win here for white while I give you a couple of seconds. So Anand missed this one, but of course you guys haven't, as you guys are amazing. He found something very similar, but here bishop to a4 is just incredibly strong. Your rook is hanging. You can move it to f8, then you're going to lose the e5 pawn. So of course you're going to move it to e6. You can't move it to e7, as we're covering the e7 square as well. So rook to e6, and now look at this. Rook to c7. You nicely connect the bishop and the knight. And there's no way to save the piece. If you play something like bishop to b3, looks like a clever defense. You capture my knight, I'm capturing your bishop. Or if you capture the bishop, I recapture with the knight. But bishop b5, you stop the knight from escaping, and there's not much you can do. For example, knight to a2, you will play rook to b2. You attack the bishop, again, the defender of the knight, and once the bishop moves, you're going to play pawn to e4, and that's it. The bishop cannot continue defending. And if you go knight to d3, well, it's definitely a possibility, but then comes rook to d2, and after pawn to e4, you will just go knight to d4, attack the rook, and where is this rook going? If you go to e5, then you're just going to capture on d3, and after captures, then you will play knight captures on b3, and again, you're up a piece. So it's, I mean, crazy, disgusting line, but, you know, I know you guys enjoy those, so if you even thought about bishop to a4 here, big congratulations. Anand found something very similar. He played rook to c7, which also connects, but there is the possibility of rook to c8, which Faustino missed. After rook to c8, you can just trade, for example, captures, and now you win a pawn. So Anand's idea would net him a pawn. Not as much as a piece as we've seen in the other line. But here bishop to d3 was played. Also seems like a very clever defense, but now Anand goes for bishop to a4. So very similar. Knight to e2 check. We have king to h2, and now rook to e6, followed by knight to e1. Going after the bishop that is defending the knight. We have bishop to a6, and now bishop to b3, attacking the rook and the f7 pawn after that. So rook to f6, offering a trade of rooks, but the f7 is still attacked twice, so it doesn't matter. We have captures, and rook captures. Anand threatening some very nasty discoveries here. So Oro unpins, and now rook captures on f6. And after all is said and done, Anand is just up a pawn, and he will grab another one. We have knight to c1 going after the bishop, but Anand first grabs the pawn with check. We have king to g7, playing an increment, and now rook captures on a6, knight captures on b3, and knight to f3. So now Anand is up 3 pawns, and it's only a matter of technique or your conversion skills, which of course Anand has plenty. We have rook to d3, knight captures on e5, rook captures on e3, and rook to a7 with check, king to f8, knight to g6 check, king to g8, and now pawn to a6. The pawn is now close to promotion. Knight to c5, trying to somehow win that pawn, but Anand just plays the beautiful rook to e7. And the problem is, if you go rook to a3, which seems like a possibility, then a7, and that's it. The knight, there's no way for the knight to do anything. You're just going to give a check and then promote the pawn. For example, rook a6, you give a check, the king goes anywhere. You're going to bring a queen into the game. Black has to capture. You will capture, and you will have a rook and 2 pawns versus a knight, of course, completely winning. And after rook to e7, of course, Faustino captured, and now Anand just played knight captures on e7. This comes with check, and he was in this position on move 57 that Faustino Oro resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once you move the king, a7 is coming, and the knight is just nowhere near stopping that pawn, so captures queen, and now it's queen and 2 pawns versus a knight, of course, completely winning. So it was a very, very interesting game. Faustino, definitely held his own. He was never in any real opportunity to do anything, and maybe with some perfect play he could hold the game. But yeah, I mean, with perfect play, of course, everyone can hold the game. But it was very, very interesting. And in the game where Faustino had white and Anand had black, Anand also was victorious, I would say, even more convincingly than in this one. The match Clash of Generations, Anand takes 2-0 against Faustino Oro, and after the game, both of them enjoyed a nice simultaneous exhibition. Anand took on 10 opponents, Faustino took on 10 opponents, so 20 opponents in total. Andrea Bocelli was also one of the opponents in the simultaneous exhibition that faced Faustino, and both Anand and Faustino achieved a score of 10-0. So they defeated all of their opponents, and it was, just a very, very, very enjoyable and nice event. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm always a big fan of these Clash of Generations. Maybe next year, when Faustino will be 12, he will probably already be a Grandmaster. We'll be very much looking forward to who he takes on and who will be able to survive. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Big congratulations to Anand on yet another display of class and skill. I would like to thank Robert Arathun, Carlos Salinas, London Initiative for Safe AI, Ricardo Paulin, and Richard Schwartz for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions, such as this one, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you haven't seen the Faustino versus Magnus game, first link in the description below. See you soon.